पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Oh, from beginning? Okay.
अतः द्वितीयोऽध्यायः सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यदुष्टमस्वर्गम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतद्वैयुपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदयदौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं सङ्ख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हा परिसूदन गुरुणा हत्वा महानुभावान् श्रेयोक्तं भैक्ष्यमपि लोके हत्वा च कामान् सुदुर्विहैव पुञ्जीय भोगान् हरिरप्रतितान् न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयः यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः ते वस्थिता प्रमुखे धृतराष्ट्राः कारुण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्।
ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शान्तिः स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा
स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा
समाधिस्थस्य केशव
समाधिस्थस्य केशव
स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत
स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत
किमासीत व्रजेत किम्
किमासीत व्रजेत किम्
प्रजहाति यदा कामान्
प्रजहाति यदा कामान्
सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान्
सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान्
आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः
आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः
स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते
स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते
प्रश्नबीजं प्रतिलभ्य अर्जुनः उवाच लब्धसमाधिप्रज्ञस्य लक्षणबुभुत्सया. Arjuna had a bubhutsa. What is bubhutsa? Huh? Bodhum ichha bubhutsa, the desire to know, not the desire to eat. Yeah, that is what? Bubhuksha. He didn't say where is breakfast. He said, I have this desire to know because Krishna had been very kind to him after pulling him up in the beginning of the chapter. After that, he has been very kind to him. Emboldened, Adi Shankara says, Prashna Bijam Pratilabhya, seeing that there is a seed of a question in the last two, things, because he was almost very, Krishna was very chatty in the so far, and then so he talked about how samadhi and that's when you will get this knowledge, etc., etc. Yeah. Not bhoktum ichha, bodhum ichha. Yeah, correct that. Bhoktum ichha, bhubhuksha. Jnatum ichha, jignasa. Kartum ichha, kikirsha. Chikirsha. And and then that chuho kuhu is there. And then what else? Moktum ichha, mumuksha. Patum ichha, desire to drink. Pipasa, very nice. Patumicha, pipasa. Bhoktumicha, bubhuksha. This is what our life is made of. Eat and drink, drink and eat. So that is, and then in between we want to know a few things. That's all. And then, so the whole thing is, landing on Arjuna's desire to know. And what is his desire to know? You're keeping on talking this ideal type of person of knowledge who is free of fear and sorrow. Where is this person? Who is this person? Because if you talk about the knowledge, the knowledge is wonderful, that's okay, I can understand. But you've not been talking just about the knowledge. You've been talking of the person who has imbibed this knowledge and the wonders of the person. Correct? Because the knowledge is of no use. You can, praise it to the skies. So what? But then you say, when you do this, then you will be in this Brahmi sthiti and you will have all this and you will have no fears, no sorrows, nothing. How should I take you upon your word? In other words, show me this person. Yeah. So, because the thing is that, when you're dealing with this kind of a knowledge or any kind of a thing, it always comes back to the desire for having role models. That's really all it comes down to. And that's a very reasonable request, because I want to know who. And of course, Krishna, who is Bhagavan, is standing right in front of him. Still he asks the question, which shows what? That, that what does it show? That the Ajnani cannot even talk about the Jnani. Because even if you talk, what is the use? Because the Jnani is, Krishna is talking till he's blue in the face. That's why he's blue. Yeah. And still this fellow says, where is this person? Arey, I'm standing right in front of you. No, but where is this person? How does this person look? How does this person walk? How does this person talk? What does this person eat? All these things he wants to know. This shows that there is a little disconnect. That's why Arjuna is the student, okay? Simple, yeah, because he doesn't know. And the other thing is this, that the same thing almost we hear in the Ramayana. In the Ramayana, when Valmiki writes the Ramayana, and he creates a scenario where the whole Ramayana was like this, written like this, that Valmiki goes into meditation for several years, an anthill grows on him, and what is his mantra? Rama, 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 Rama. That's all his mantra is. Keeps on chanting, and then Narada gives the mantra, goes away, and then comes back several years later, finds that the ants are chanting the mantra in the anthill. He said that's not possible, so he cleans out the anthill and finds this man that he had given the mantra to, who was a highway, in those days not highway, forest robber, and he was giving people lessons in instant vairagya by relieving them of their belongings. This was the fellow, Nishada, a hunter, and no good fellow, and he has redeemed himself and purified his heart so much, and then he taps him on the shoulder, wakes him up from his samadhi, and tells him, you are now, you don't need to chant anymore, you write the story of Rama. You are qualified now, equipped to write the story of Lord Rama. And what does he say? He says, you tell me this first, and then I will write it. And so Narada gives him a short version, and then Valmiki writes the long version. So the first 100 shlokas are Narada telling Valmiki, and this is how it begins. Konvasmin sampratam loke gunavan kascha viryavan dharmajñascha kritajñascha satyavakyo dridavratah charitreshu chako yuktah sarvabhuteshu kohitah vidvan kahkas samarthascha kaschaika priyadarshanah. Like this he goes on for 16 qualities. 16 is a number of completion. And he keeps asking, ka u asmin loke, asmin loke, in this world, in our world, sampratam loke, contemporary world, who is there? Who is gunavan, full of the best of qualities? Who is viryavan? Who is, somebody may have the best of qualities, but you see a chicken across the road and you go puk puk puk, maybe it's coming to attack me. No, viryavan, someone who is brave, who can handle themselves and a whole army if needed. Yeah. And then dharmajñah, the one who knows dharma, follows dharma. Kritajñascha, the one who is well mannered in terms of transactions, who is full of gratitude. Satyavakyah, who doesn't just know dharma but knows how to speak the truth. Dridavratah, whatever the person says, the person is able to carry through. Who is such a person? Atmavan, the one who has a say over themselves. And who is such a person? Is there such a person in this world? In my world? I don't want some, fellow in history, because that's not much use to me. How do I know that they were like this? I have to take the history books, or I have to take your word for it. You also haven't seen such a person. So, I want to know someone right here, right now, who can help me. Why do I need this help? Because no matter how much I study, I want to look up to a person. I want to look up to a person as a jnani. Now, did not Arjuna look up to Krishna? He looked up to Krishna, all right. But as an elder, as someone who was, he took him for granted. As a friend, as an elder, as someone who was into mischief with him, as someone who is a contemporary, as a wise person, but not as wise as, from the standpoint of Vedanta. And so, it's a very different kind of a thing. And he is not yet, the knowledge has not sunk in enough. Even after the 11th chapter, he still doesn't know what this all is about. He still asks silly questions in the 12th chapter. So, that shows that the duality takes, takes some time to be dismissed, even though the knowledge is, immediate. What happens is the person's own resistances, fears and habitual orientations, make the person what? Make the person somewhat not open to just behaving as, as spontaneously as they could. So here he is starving for some kind of a role model, someone he can look up to, someone he can point and say, oh, there walks a jnani. And he also thinks in his mind that, just like if you say, describe a giraffe, what is the unique quality of a giraffe? Yeah, the neck is in Brahmaloka. That is the quality. The body is here, neck is in Brahmaloka. Correct? So that is the quality of the giraffe. Somewhere the neck is, You have to get a little catch by making eye contact with the giraffe. Then again zebra, then you just say, okay, like psychedelic stripes, white and black stripes. And then you say lion, immediately you get the mane. There are certain characteristics. So lion, mane, giraffe, stripes. No, sorry. Giraffe, neck. What is the other one? Zebra, stripes. Water buffalo, rain, or mud bath. These are all the hippo, what is hippo? Yeah, big fellow. Like this we have. So zebra, stripe, giraffe, neck. Jnani? Question mark. This is what Arjuna wants. He wants to just quickly identify, just like we do in the school books. In the school books, this is a primer for first grade, second grade. This is what is given, How do you identify giraffe? This is how it is. Cheetah. What is cheetah? Spots. Leopard, spots. Tiger, again stripes, but yellow and black variety, not black and white variety. That's how you distinguish between zebra and tiger. Also zebra vegetarian, safely vegetarian. Tiger not. Tiger, purushavore, yeah, omnivore, man eating, but human eating, being a tiger. So like this, he wants some kind of an easy way to identify, that's a jnani. This one, no. That one, yes. This one, no. Because this is very exciting to be able to have the jnani pinned down, by having all the characteristics. And what are the characteristics? he asked this question. So what is the question? The question is very interesting. Let us look at the question. हे केशव स्थितप्रज्ञस्य समाधिस्थस्य का भाषा स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत किम् आसीत किं व्रजेत. This is his question in a prosaic form. So what is his, what is the question? Sthita prajna, he has coined this term. Sthita prajna. Sthita prajna, yasya, sthita prajna. Even though the knowledge here is the word knowledge, prajna is feminine, it is where the knowledge abides that is being talked about. The person who is the storehouse of knowledge is talked about. And so that is the meaning of the word sthita prajna here. What kind of knowledge? You can be a sthita prajna in cooking, correct? You can be a sthita prajna in dancing. You can be a sthita prajna in writing reviews for restaurants. But no, here what is talked about is the knowledge of Vedanta or self-knowledge, because of which this, one is radically transformed from being a dukhi, samsari, all this to another jnani, So what is this, what is this transformation? A complete transformation where it's like the person has taken a new birth. There is nothing there from the past. The past is gone, swallowed. Nothing there from the past, meaning the reactions, the habitual orientations, the habitual reactions to certain situations, certain people, certain, whatever it is, transactional ways of being which are dysfunctional have all been, taken away. Those kinds of reactions are no longer there. And then the knowledge, this is what is the difference between someone who is pursuing the knowledge and someone who has assimilated the knowledge. So this is the difference, because the person who is pursuing the knowledge also may be, may have prajna, may have, the ability to communicate, may have all the lingo memorized, Atma is Brahman, there is no Brahman without being Atma, Atma is SCA, Satchidananda, and then, and then this Satchidananda is the cause of the universe, and in relation to this cause of the universe, we call this Ishvara. You can say all these things, one can say all these things. But then, goes out, when such a person who is spewing Vedanta in location A is let loose into the world, what happens? They are screaming at someone, they are upset, they are, you see them in a light where there is a big discrepancy between what they appear to know and how they are behaving. So this is the gap that is being addressed. So the one in whom there is knowledge, that many people may have this self-knowledge, many people may know what is what. Atma is Brahman, I have no doubt at all. Then what is the problem? I can't behave like that, that's all. Small issue, tiny thing, So this is a small thing because I already know. Only thing is I don't behave according to what I know. So this is, even though it may look like a small problem to the person, it is a glaring gap to the bystander, the one who sees from outside, has this whatever, sees this big discrepancy. And so here, Sthita Prajna means the one in whom the lessons have not just been memorized or committed to some kind of a rote learning, but that learning has transform the person from within in accordance with the fruits of the learning. What is the fruits of the learning? All is one. That is what we are learning, correct? All is one. So if all is one, and then I am that one, that's the part B. I am that one. All is one, I am that one. Then where is another? Nowhere. You have to say, we already saw in the morning that the Jagat exists between the temples. And so all this duality, where is it? It's nowhere. But then, one is in the world and one is, interacting with these other people. And how do you interact with the people who are nothing but yourself? First of all, how do you see them as yourself? How do you see them as extensions of your own self? So how do you interact with other people? The same way that you would interact with an extremity, correct? You don't fight with your left hand. Bad. You can't even pick up a pen, let alone write. Bad. What if something would happen to this hand? Will you be able to do something? No, of course not. This is this doesn't happen. Neither does this hand go and tell this hand, don't think of yourself as too accomplished, and don't think of yourself as, just the seventh wonder of the world. Big deal. So this is, this doesn't happen because these are all mine, correct? Here is the elevated, enlightened, here we can use the word enlightened, quote unquote, use of the sixth case. Everything is mine, everything is me. Not just these 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Because when you choose and number the things that belong to you, you are in, digging a grave of finitude and smallness, And so that's a grave matter. So therefore, here you just grow into seeing everything as yourself. So there are two ways of tackling this ahankara, the ego. Either you say I am nothing and then it gets deflated, correct? Or you say I am everything and it becomes big until it just bursts and mingles with everything. So both ways. So whichever way you want to go about it, this is how it is. So the jnani here is this person who has assimilated that oneness, and the extent to which that clarity is there and the extent to which the assimilation of this oneness is there is a correlation. There is a correlation between the extent of clarity and the extent of oneness that is assimilated, and a correlation between one's learning and one's behavior. And because, and why is the behavior important here? Arjuna somehow knows this. The behavior becomes important to Arjuna because he wants somebody to look up to. He wants somebody to say, yes, this is the person of knowledge. Because otherwise, if the behavior is not important, then how am I going to know whether this is a jnani or not? So the behavior is important according to Arjuna, and the sooner I master the behavior, it's like taking the binoculars and going in the wild and observing the monkeys. There's one lady who's given her whole life to monkeys, some Jain, not Tarzan Jain, another Jain, Goodall, and she's given the whole life to monkeys, all kinds of monkeys, Ishta monkeys, big monkey, small monkey, macaca, rhesus, this, that, chimpanzee, gorilla. She knows all their habits. She just goes, sits in a tree and then just observes them, and has been observing them for 40, 50 years, almost 3-4 decades she has been observing them, really, So Arjuna wants to go and observe the jnanis with his binoculars. Oh, there goes one. Oh, look at it. Look at this one. So there is a certain level of objectifying that which cannot be objectified, because the jnani is really Atma, correct? Atma cannot be objectified. So really speaking, what the jnani knows cannot be objectified. So jnani's behavior can be objectified for sure. So therefore he says, how do they mingle, these jnanis? What do they eat? What do they talk? And here the spiritual world is rampant with these misconstructions, because really speaking we have no right to talk about jnani. There is no way to talk about jnani. There is, what are we doing sitting here and talking about jnani? And the jnani means the one who is the one who is one with this knowledge. And really, if an ajnani sits down and has a jnani book club, they are not going to find out. Even if they read, they are not going to find out the characteristics of the jnani if one is an ajnani. If one is a jnani, why will you want to sit down and observe yourself and look at your own characteristics? Then also it is moot, so then also you are not talked about. And so here Arjuna is in a quandary really, because he wants some identifiable characteristics, but then he doesn't know how to ask the question. So he coins this term, Sthita Prajna. It's his own term, very excellent term. In fact, the first line is very nice and the second line peters out in his question. So, Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. What is the ka bhasha? Doesn't mean language here, even though the word bhasha means language. Bhasha here means what is the how to translate that? Like, what's up with the Sthita Prajna? Yeah, it's like that. Ka bhasha, what are other, how do other people describe him? What is his description, ityartha? His or her description. Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. Who is this? Samadhisthaha. Samadhau tishtatiti samadhisthaha. Tasya, sixth case. So Samadha, Upapada, Tatpurusha, these are all called kind of a samasa. And so then this one is called, what is this? So you see, it's like that. Gacchati iti gaha. So anything that goes, you put gaha there, correct? And if it doesn't go, what do you say? No, you have to use gaha and say it doesn't go. It doesn't go. Agaha. Yeah, not anagaha. Agaha. Na gacchati iti agaha, correct? And so tishtati iti sthaha. Grihe tishtati iti grihasthaha. Parvate tishtati iti parvatasthaha. Stays, sits, where? In the mountain. Who is that? Parvati. Parvate tishtati iti parvatasthaha. And then what? Grihe tishtati iti grihasthaha. Who is the grihastha? Householder, househeld. Vanasthaha. Vane tishtati. So like this, and then Atmani tishtati iti atmasthaha. Samadhau tishtati, samadhisthaha. Samadhau because it's a ikara, like harau. Samadhau tishtati iti samadhisthaha. So here it should not be taken, and Adi Shankara warns this in the Bhashya also, this should not be taken as someone who is permanently in, what? Yeah, samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi. Completely in samadhi, and then that means what? Not available for transaction. And that's not the person we are talking about. Here samadhisthaha, samadhi means the one who is one with oneself. That is the ultimate and only samadhi. Okay? Yeah. So, this is very exciting now. So now, Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. What's up with the Sthita Prajna? How to describe such a person? And then Adi Shankara kind of saves Arjuna's question by saying, how do other people talk about him? Him, her. And then what? Next line goes down, brings down Arjuna totally, poor fellow, doesn't know what he is talking about. Sthitadhihi kim prabhasheta. How does the person talk? Kim asita. What does he sit on? Or how does he sit? Brajeta kim. How do they walk? That's what he's got his binoculars out, and he wants some guidelines how to identify this Sthita Prajna. That is what the thing is. And we cannot blame Arjuna for asking this question, because the spiritual world is rampant with these kinds of conjectures about the jnani. sometimes people think if the person talks very softly and very, very, very slowly, they must know everything. They are a jnani. Why? Very slowly they are talking. In between two words you can go make tea and come back, and you will not miss anything. This is what the jnani is. Why? Because the words are coming from the infinite, which is very far away. So slowly, thoda aayega, And even though the jnani is connected to the infinite directly, still it's taking time to percolate like good coffee. You have to wait. So for the words of the jnani, you have to wait. Some people really think that. And some teachers, and they will cultivate this changing their voice and talking very softly and slowly. Only when teaching. Other times they'll be, talking normally. Only while teaching. And that is one such, what is that? Abiding misconception in the contemporary spiritual world. And then there is another group of people who say that if it's a jnani, the words will come fast. Because why? The infinite is communicating, and this sad little body and the sad little mind, and what to talk about this little vocal cords is not capable of just receiving all the impulses from where they are coming. So very quickly you have to talk, because so many things are coming, so many ideas are coming. How to even get them through, and look at what the torture the person is enduring to get them through must be Sthita Prajna. This is some other people thinking like this. Already you have what is called Koti Dvayam. Yeah. And not to be outdone, there is a third group of people. I'm just characterizing, that's all. What is the third group of people? Exactly. Don't talk at all. And they will say, the ones who know don't talk. The ones who talk don't know, obviously. Hello, would you like some tea? I can't even do it. So, in complete silence at all times. Go into silence. Delve deep in the silence, and when you dredge into this silence, you drag out the knowledge like a catch, when you go ice fishing and deeply, poor fish is hibernating, waiting for this ice to go, and even there they don't let it free. They go inside and catch the poor fish. And like that, like ice fishing, where you have to delve deep inside the waters and catch it. Similarly here, you delve deep into that silence. Even if, another person is in danger, you don't warn them. Just be in silence. Let's say they're getting run over by a truck. You write on a piece of paper, watch out. You warn them all right, but you write on a piece of, watch out, danger behind, danger ahead, whatever it is. You don't talk. Why? Because you're constantly fluttering the eyelids and delving deep into yourself. So you can catch this, very elusive Atma and bring it out and say, I got it. So the one who doesn't talk means they have got it. And sometimes, one sits, Pujya Swamiji always talks about one Mahatma that he met who sits without blinking. Just sits without blinking, whole day, and you can keep on watching him, he doesn't blink, Maybe he has some special eye drops that he puts at night. Naturally you will need something after whole day of this. And then people think that the non-blinking stare means what? Actually it would creep me out. But To be very honest with you, I would be creeped out if somebody kept on looking at me without blinking. But for a lot of people, lot of people appear to think that this non-blinking stare, aluptadrik, exactly, is like the Atma who is seeing everything and who doesn't miss anything. Yeah, I think they put a little glue here and then go, like that. Otherwise, how is it possible? I don't know. They must be putting some harmless glue and then, in every morning and then fixing the eyelids up. Window shades are permanently up and, and the person, and such a person is seen as aluptadrik. Atma is seen as the seer, correct? How to be a seer? You keep on seeing constantly. You never stop seeing so that people will call you seer. Ayyo Rama. In order to be, if being a jnani is all spontaneity, there's a lot of effort to get to this spontaneity, I say. So the spiritual world is rampant with these kinds of behaviors, perhaps from Arjuna's question. And then people say the jnani has to drift slowly, walk. Slowly walk. Because if you walk fast, you don't know. These are all, or you should eat in this particular way. Or this is what you should eat. Or this is what you shouldn't eat. And, that kind of a thing. And this is what the whole thing is. And people say things like, people have ideas. Jnani shouldn't eat too much. If you're hungry, forget it. You shouldn't eat too much. Why? Because you should be purna, full of it, Brahman, filled with Brahman. When all the delicacies come in front of you, you should say no. Why? Because I am already full. I am Purnananda. I am Purna plus Ananda. The Ananda that is coming out of Purnatvam or Sampurnatvam, that is what I am. I don't require the food that mere mortals eat, these victuals you can have. Me, I am beyond that. This is what the whole thing is. This is all just one's own imagination, which is a projection on what the jnani should be. And it is based on surface level ideas of that, which is not an indicator of that knowledge which really is beyond indications. So if the knowledge is saying Satchidananda, then the jnani is also Satchidananda. And whether that Satchidananda is like a quiet ocean, Maunam ocean, quiet ocean sitting by itself, still grand, glorious, majestic ocean, but quiet. That's how it is. One day you go to the ocean, it's all quiet. Some small little waves may be lapping up and back and forth. Another day you go to the ocean or you go to another ocean, it is roaring activity, correct? And then third time you go to the ocean, it's like they say, okay, run away, tsunami is coming. Can't even approach the ocean. That is what, Bhagavan Krishna, in this particular section, which is starting from verse 54 to the end of the chapter, which is 72, it's just the same topic of the jnani being unfolded from various standpoints, and this is what he is going to ultimately conclude, that the jnani is oceanic in stature. Oceanic in stature means what? Like the ocean, complete and full, without being disturbed. And the ocean can have many avatars. It can be a roaring ocean, it can be a quiet ocean, it can be a ocean full of, tsunamis. So too, you cannot sort of judge the jnani from the behaviors, because the behaviors The everyday transactional behaviors are not an indication of the person's knowledge or the abiding in the knowledge. And so the question is simple enough. The question is, he wants to know how to identify ajnani through overt characteristics. That's where he makes the mistake. That he needs to identify ajnani is not wrong, because he wants a role model. That he is unable to identify Lord Krishna standing right there and he's asking this question is also not wrong, because it shows that he is unable to see this and that because he doesn't know. If he knew, he would be able to look for those very characteristics that he is wanting, he is desirous of knowing. So none of this is wrong. Why is it not wrong? Because, why do I need a role model? Because when I have a role model, I know, this person is over here and I am over here and I have this long way to go, correct? Miles to go before I get there. This is the feeling. And so, but then instead of feeling dejected, I actually feel encouraged. This person could do it, therefore I can also do it. So this is what the whole thing is. So the lakshanas, lakshanani, the description or the definition of a jnani is useful to the person in this knowledge, because that is what the person who is pursuing this knowledge want to be like the jnani, want to themselves be jnanis. So the lakshana becomes a sadhana. The lakshana of the jnani becomes the sadhana or the practice for the jnani wannabe. Yeah. So the jnani wannabe is thinking, what are they thinking? How to get there. And what is the there? If I don't know the there, how will I get there? So now I know what is, what this entails. And so now I know how I can fashion my life to make the effort. Sadhana always requires effort. In the jnani, you see the culmination of the sadhana, and in the person who is wanting to know this, who is on the way to know this, you see the beginning of the sadhana or the desire to start the sadhana. Now a very important question can be asked. Indeed, if the knowledge is effortless, what is this effort are you talking about? We are not talking about knowledge. We are talking about abiding in the knowledge. Knowledge is effortless. You are whole. Did you understand? Say yes. Yes. That's all. What effort does it take to see this flower? Does it take any effort to see this flower? No. If the eyes are open, you cannot avoid seeing this flower. If I hold it and say, please look at my nose, but don't see this flower, you say, I'm sorry, but it's impossible. If I hold it and say, look at me, but don't look at this flower, you cannot oblige, even if you have the greatest of Shraddha. Why? Because knowledge is Vastu Tantram Jnanam. What is Vastu Tantram?
The form of the...
It's
as good as
it's as good as the object. Very good. It's as good as the object. The knowledge is dependent upon the object that the means of knowledge reveals. So if the object is like this, and if I keep telling you, please look at this lovely mango, you're not going to oblige. Maybe the color of mango, but this is not a mango. Even if you try very hard to say mango, 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 and open the eyes, mango, 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 still marigold. Only ma is similar, Yeah. It's not mango. Why? Because the means of knowledge here, in this case your eyes, tell you otherwise. And this is pramana, pramana tantram jnanam. The knowledge is dependent upon the object, and it is as true as the means of knowledge reveal it to be. So therefore, the eyes cognize a flower. Even if I keep telling this is not a flower, you cannot oblige, even if you have Shraddha. And so too, in the same way, this knowledge that you are the whole is coming from one more pramana. What is that pramana? Shabda pramana. Shabda pramana. Veda Pramana, Shabda Pramana, Vedanta is the Pramana, the Vedanta is the eyes. The text are the pair of eyes for me to see what I cannot see otherwise. So the knowledge, there is an immediacy, it has to take place. It does take place. Only thing is, it is riddled with doubts, errors, confusions and vagueness. The removal of the doubts, errors, confusion and vagueness is called Sthita Prajnatvam. That's what it is. And that is done in two ways. One is through Mananam. The first is Shravanam, that through listening, and then after that, through listening, the knowledge is uncovered and the ignorance is dismissed. And the ignorance dismissed once doesn't come back. But then what? The ignorance is dismissed all right, but the knowledge is riddled with doubts, vagueness, errors, confusions, distortions still remain. And so therefore, if they remain, then what happens? We have to go to the second upaya, which is Mananam upaya, remedy. And Mananam is meditation, sitting with yourself and thinking about all this in the light of the Shastra that you have studied. Mananam is also talking to others and talking to the teacher about all this. And then even if that is not enough, if I know, I have no doubt at all, I have no doubt that I am Brahman, but my behavior is not Brahman-like at all. And also I don't know how to behave like Brahman because Brahman doesn't act. So should I just sit quietly? What should I be doing? This confusion is between the habitual orientation of the former I that has actually been devoured by the fire of knowledge. But it's like a rope. When you burn the rope, the striations of the rope are still there, intact. Rope is gone. Yeah. But what is there? The twists. All the twists are still there. So now the person, the person's ignorance has been burnt. Jnanagni, bhasmasat kurute, the fire of knowledge has burnt all this. But then the old orientations in the form of the striations and the twists of the rope that are seen in the embers of the fire are still there, so to speak. And now that is being straightened out by this description, because a jnani did not get there without sadhana. This is actually without teaching and sadhana, it is very rare for someone to be a jnani. It is possible, you do see exceptions like Ramana Maharshi, etc. Exceptions are there, but exceptions make not the rule. Yeah. Always people give the example. Why do I have to do sadhana? Why can't I be like Ramana Maharshi? Why can't I be like so and so? Why can't I be like Adi Shankara? Because they are exceptions. And how do you know they did not do sadhana? Asmin janmani, janmantare va. Either in this life or other lives, the sadhana has been done. You just see this life and you say that they got the knowledge by themselves. Nobody gets the knowledge by themselves, and nobody who has jnana nishtha, here we can use the word sthita prajna is equal to jnana, sthita prajnatvam, sthita prajnata is equal to jnana nishtha. Nishtha means abidance in. Abidance in this knowledge without confusion, vagueness, error, etc., doubts. This is what is called, this is what one is hoping for. And any jnani who has got there has made the effort, either overtly or covertly, either visibly or invisibly, either in this life or previous lives. The effort cannot be, Adi Shankara also says this yatna, he calls it yatna. This cannot be, taken for granted. This cannot be glided over. This is something which the effort has been made, and this effort, you see the fruits of the effort in the jnani. And then we need to know what kind of effort because I need to know this because I want to be that jnani. I want to be like that jnani. So those efforts become for me sadhana, practices through which I can, emulate the jnani at first and then learn to be, and then naturally those traits that I am emulating become myself because they are not separate from myself to begin with. And so this is what the question is. The question, is what is the spirit, what is the spirit of this question? Because Arjuna does not answer the question, because otherwise he'll be there all, Gita will have more than 18 chapters. If he started to say how the jnani sits, stands, walks, goes to the bathroom, all these things, this is not the matters with which we need to concern ourselves. So either you can answer the question, if somebody asks a question, or you can answer the person. And Krishna chooses always in the whole Bhagavad Gita to do the latter. He answers the person, not the question. So he sees through the question and sees exactly what, Arjuna is asking. He's not interested whether the jnani is having idlis or chapati. That's not what his thing is. He is wanting to know how I can be like the jnani, otherwise why is he interested in the jnani? And so he answers the question from a very, from a beautiful space. We'll see that, but first the bhashya for this. He says, Sthita pratisthita aham asmi param brahma iti prajnayasya saha sthita prajnaha. So sthita pratisthita means established. The one in whom this knowledge of the self as Brahman, as the ultimate Brahman, as the absolute Brahman is firmly, undoubtedly, clearly established, is called Sthita Prajna. This is Adi Shankara's definition. Tasya ka bhasha, and kim bhashanam vachanam, bhasha, bhash plus tap. So bhasha, feminine, from bhash, to speak. So bhasha, you can take it, Adi Shankara says, vachanam, how does the person speak? What kinds of words do they use? Or he says, katham asau paraihi bhashyate samadhisthasya samadhau sthitasya he Keshava. Paraihi katham bhashyate, how do other people describe him, her? Paraihi means by others. Paraihi, by others, katham bhashyate, how is such a person of knowledge described by others? Here we should add others who know. Otherwise we'll have again the spiritual romanticism. Doesn't talk, does talk, keeps the eyes closed, keeps the eyes permanently open, because one has the pressure to be called a seer. And, and so on and so forth. So then he says, so we have to add a little bit here. We have to edit this because Adi Shankara assumes that it is understood. But we have to say here what? The one who know. How is the person described by the ones who also know? And then what? Sthitadhihi, sthita prajnaha, swayam va kim prabhasheta. Or you can say, how does the person himself talk? Nothing much to explain here, very easy. Kim asita vrajeta, kim asanam vrajanam va tasya katham bhavet ityarthaha. So how does the person sit? How does the person stand? How does the person roam around, walk? All these things. So this is Arjuna with the binoculars trying to do a sthita prajna watch. And then, Adi Shankara says, sthita prajnasya lakshanam anena shlokena prichhati. He just concludes. The one who is, he just is asking for lakshana, the definition of a sthita prajna. And then, so the answer is given. He Partha, Atmani eva atmana tushta san yada purushaha, we have to add, prajahati sarvan manogatan kaman tada sthita prajnaha uchyate. This is the prosaic form. If you make this verse into a sentence, that's how the words would need to be rearranged. आत्मनि एव आत्मना तुष्टः सन् यदा सः और पुरुषः प्रजहाति सर्वान् मनोगतान् कामान् तदा स्थितप्रज्ञः उच्यते. Now, Bhagavan Krishna gives the answer because he is not answering the question, he is answering Arjuna, the spirit of the question. And what is the spirit of the question? How is the jnani defined? So he gives the definition, a very nice one-line definition. Prajahati. Prajahati means from ha to abandon. Why does the word ha means abandon? Because when something is abandoned, you go ha ha. That's why in Sanskrit ha means to abandon. Ha becomes jaha because there is some rule called duplication. So ha becomes ha ha and then ha ha becomes jaha. Jaha plus the first person, third person ending jahati. To that you add prajahati, prakarshena jahati. So the one who lets go, the one who completely lets go, abandons. What do they abandon? Kaman sarvan, all desires. Ayyo Rama, what a terrifying definition of a jnani. The one who abandons sarvan kaman prajahati. When do they abandon? Manogatan sarvan kaman prajahati. Manogatan means even as they arise in the mind. Oh, a chocolate cake right about now sounds very good. Gone. How about ice cream? Gone. Whoa. How about something else? Gone. So like this, whatever comes into the mind in the form of thoughts, because the desires first come in the form of a thought, correct? Yes? Yes. So all those thoughts which contain desires, abandoned even as they arise. You don't even walk halfway to the store and come back. Even as they arise in the mind, they are given up. That is the first definition of a jnani. Ayyo, this is very difficult. How am I ever going to get there? And the second definition is even worse. What is the second definition? Atmani, seventh case, in oneself. Atmana, third case, through oneself. Through oneself, in oneself, tushtaha, ever contented. Ever contented, through oneself, by oneself, in oneself, contented. Happy, being what they are. And so there is a yada tada construction. We have to see this very clearly. Yada means when. So when these two conditions are fulfilled. What were the two conditions? Yeah, so when all the desires, even as they arise in the mind, are, bound into a little bag, weighted, tied down and thrown into the sea, that is, all the desires are glub, gone, even as they arise in the mind. Even as they arise in the mind is very important. And then that first condition, because this is the conditional construction. Yada, when this happens, then what happens? Then what is the other condition? Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. When the person is happy in themselves, by themselves, then tada, then that person is, in Krishna's opinion, in Lord Krishna's opinion, gets the title Sthita Prajna, stamped. And they have a certificate that they can display in their house, correct? So this is very difficult. And not only that, it appears contradictory. So the one who is happy in themselves, by themselves, correct? So in order to be happy, I have to give up all the desires, correct? Because that was the first condition. And in order to give up the desires, I have to be happy in myself, through myself. This is like that, Yeah, this is like that situation in the village. It's unfortunate, but it still happens. In the village, they had a, like a cuckoo son, son who was slightly off. And they took him to the village doctor. And what did the village doctor say? Any ideas? Get him married. Poor lady who's going to marry him. Get him married, he will be okay. The Vaidya checked the pulse and said, get him married and he'll be okay. So the marriage, as soon as he is married, the madness will disappear. But then, it's a village, right? Village means everybody knows everyone. Even in the next village, his fame has spread. Not a single person is willing to give their daughter to this fellow. Even if they go 3 villages apart, this is what happens. The bride's family comes to meet the groom's family and meet the groom, and the groom is sedated with some dhatura or whatever they had, herbal sedation, so that he doesn't say silly things, and make a fool of himself. And so the groom looks very sedate and well groomed, and and they're about to say yes to the alliance, but there's always the mediator, correct? The person who has brought this party to these 2 parties together. And that fellow has a good conscience, and he doesn't want to be in this horrible situation. So he says that this is a great family, but ... And he says, oh, got to go because I have to introduce 2 other parties. And he just slips from there. But the ... weighs heavily on the parents of this girl. And they just quickly make their excuses and they don't pursue this alliance. So what happens to this madman? Permanently mad, because until he gets married, the madness will not go. And then what? He will not get married. Simple. Because until the madness goes, he will not get married. This is what the whole situation is. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani eva atmana tushtah tada sthita prajnah uchyate. So I have to be happy with myself, in myself, by myself, through myself, all by myself, me. And then what? In order to be happy with myself, I have to give up all the desires, And then what? Giving up the desires, I have to be happy with myself. And unless I give up the desires, I'm not happy with myself. Unless I'm happy with myself, I can't give up the desires. Because I'm unhappy with myself, that's why I have the desires. This is the whole problem. And here, Arjuna, even a Sudoku is easy to solve rather than this one. That Sudoku, you have to keep putting different numbers and then get some same quotient everywhere. This is what it is, airplane game. And everybody I see around playing that. And, that is easy to solve. But how are you going to get out of this vyuha? Vyuha means a certain kind of a formation that is coming thick and close together, ready to strangle, because it seems anavastha, not anavastha, anyonya ashraya. It has the fallacy of mutual dependency. Because then how are you going to be happy? Just give up the desires. How are you going to give up the desires? First, should I be happy? No. Yeah, that's true. But then how can I be happy first when I'm unhappy? I'm unhappy, right? That's why I'm a samsari. And yes, I have attended a few Vedanta classes, but they have not hit completely home, And so I am wanting to know how the Jnani lives, how the Jnani behaves, and what are the definitions. And I am told the one who is happy, by themselves. So I have to be happy by myself. How is that going to happen? Simple, give up all desires. So in order to be happy, I have to give up desires. Okay, how to give up desires? Be happy with yourself, then it's easy to give up the desires. Do you see the mutual interdependency? What to do, how to resolve this. And so we will just read the introductory bhashya to see what is being said here. A lot of things will become very clear. यो हि आदितः एव सन्न्यस्य कर्माणि ज्ञानयोगनिष्ठया प्रवृत्तः यः च कर्मयोगेन तयोः स्थितप्रज्ञस्य प्रजहाति इति आरभ्य अध्यायपरिसमाप्तिपर्यन्तं स्थितप्रज्ञलक्षणं साधनं च उपदिश्यते. So he says, the one who right from the beginning has become a sannyasi, has become a renunciant, right from the start has become the renunciant, and then what? Has left all actions that need to be done, and through practices such as karma yoga, before the actions were given up, through practices such as karma yoga, has pursued this abidance in the knowledge. For such a person, prajahati iti arabhya. So for such a person, also for the karma yogi, both are indicated here. For the one who is reaping the fruits of karma yoga, and for the one who has finished the karma yoga and has taken up a renunciant's life, for both of them, sthita prajnasya, for such a person, because here we say that even a grihastha can be a jnani, that is why both are talked about here. And then prajahati iti arabhya, arabhya means starting with prajahati, which is verse 55 to verse 72, which is not mentioned, but it says adhyaya parisamapti paryantam, to the end of the chapter. Sthita prajna lakshanam sadhanam cha upadishyate. Actually it should be upadishyate, but he just takes the sadhanam cha as a side phrase. So these are taught. What are taught here? Sthita prajnasya lakshanam cha sadhanam cha, the definition of the sthita prajna and the efforts, the ladder to climb, all the day-to-day efforts that one has to make in order to get to the place of sthita prajnatvam are both talked about. Why? The reason is given in the next paragraph. सर्वत्र एव हि अध्यात्मशास्त्रे कृतार्थलक्षणानि यानि तानि एव साधनानि उपदिश्यन्ते. Everywhere in the Shastra, whether you talk of the Upanishad or the Bhagavad Gita, Adhyatma Shastre, in self-knowledge, wherever there is self-knowledge, Kritartha Lakshanani, Yani Tani Eva, Sadhanani Upadishyante. So not only the teaching is taught, but along with the teaching, something else is taught. What is taught? The characteristics or the definition of the fruits of this teaching, the results of the teaching, and the person who abides in the teaching. How do we know? Look at the Kathopanishad. What do we say in the Kathopanishad? Dhiraha muchyante. Dhiraha harsha shokau jahati. Gives up this alternative yo-yo of sorrow and happiness, correct? Who? Dhira. Dhira here is sthita prajna. So even though different words are used, all this, the culmination of the knowledge and the fruit of the knowledge is talked about sarvatra, everywhere. And they become either the litmus test of the jnani or the stepping stones for the ajnani or the jnani in the making. And then he talks about because of, why are they talked about? He says, yatna sadhyatvat. Fifth case, the cause is given. So this is the reason. Because it is accomplished through effort. Knowledge is not accomplished through effort. Abidance in knowledge requires effort. That is the big, this is the big mistake people make. People think, I know. Yes, I know everything. But here we are talking about how deep is the is the conditioning that needs to be removed in order for this knowledge to abide. How deep is the conditioning that needs to be reckoned with? And what is this conditioning? I am insecure. I need to shore up my security. I need to have certain, things to do. I need to, collect certain things. I need to have approval. All these things, if they don't go, and if I have the knowledge, it's not going to do me any good because it's not blessing me. So yatna sadhyatvat means how to make this knowledge bless me and how to remove the conditionings that are there which are stopping me from gaining this blessing of enjoying the knowledge. Yani yatna sadhyani sadhanani lakshanani cha bhavanti tani. So, what is accomplished with effort alone is called sadhana, he says. Effort alone, these the characteristics of abiding in the knowledge requires effort. Knowledge doesn't require effort, but jnana nishtha requires some attention, alertness and effort. And so, very beautiful introduction to this, to this whole section. Very nice. So here we have to see that, obviously, that these two conditions are not mutually interdependent. Because if they were, then it's like the madman trying to get married to lose the madness and can't get married. So, until he gets married, he cannot become sane, and until he is sane, he cannot get married. So that's not what is happening here. Even though that's how it looks, that is not what is happening. Because what is talked about here is that we are not talking of the sarvan manogatan kaman. Even though all desires the person gives up is said, all desires are not given up. There are two kinds of desires. One is the desire that puts the pressure. The desire that presses the button and puts the pressure on the person, and the other one is a desire that just arises, a kind of an innocuous desire, fulfilling which I am okay, and unfulfilled also I am fine with it. A pressureless desire and a pressured desire. You can also call the pressured desire a binding desire, a desire that binds one, as it were, into this whole murky waters of the samsara. And then a desire that is non-binding in nature. Because if all the jnanis gave up all their desires, then what would happen? No teaching would be there, because that's a desire to teach, correct? And the desire to write, none of Adi Shankara's, we would not be reading Adi Shankara's commentary. Can we call Adi Shankara a hypocrite? Because he is telling everyone that yatna sadhyatvat, you should, with great effort, you should remove all the desires. But here he is writing commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Out of what? Desire. Desire to teach, desire to write. Then we, and desire, and Lord Krishna is so eager to teach, he doesn't even mind that it's a, cacophony-filled battlefield. He doesn't say, let us go somewhere quiet and I'll teach you, then fight now. He doesn't tell him that. He was waiting for him to just come and be ready for this knowledge. And as soon as he says, Shishyaste ham shadhimam tvam, he has barely said the word prapannam, I have surrendered to, okay, ashochya nanvashochastvam, he immediately starts with the teaching. Doesn't even allow him barely to complete the sentence. That means he is eager to teach. Shankara is eager to write. Shankara wrote so much in his short life, so much was accomplished. Vyasa wrote, my God, such a lot. Whole Mahabharata in this meter called Jaya, victory. Because it's all about victory over our own negative archetypes. It's full of metaphors, the Mahabharata. So then either all these people are not jnanis, Adi Shankara, Vyasa and Bhagavan Krishna himself, or something is wrong with this definition. So here, that's why we have to see that Sarvan Kaman means the kama is that which has a force. Yeah, so the kama is that which has the force. A forceful desire which makes makes one put extra effort even at the cost of transgressing what? Dharma, to fulfill it. Because that dharma is very important. So the binding desires need to be given up, because it's not an option for someone wanting to be a jnani or for a jnani to cross dharma. Dharma is not a boat, to cross from ajnanam to jnanam. So when you cross the boat, the ferry, when you ferry yourself across the river, row your boat merrily down the stream, correct? Yeah, gently down the stream, and you just go, and the knowledge is given, merrily, Jagat is but a dream. Okay, so then that is the knowledge. Then what do you do with the boat when you reach the other side? Yeah, you just walk away. You don't carry it on your head and go start walking. Correct? Dharma is not like a boat, that you go from ajnanam to jnanam, and in the course of the teaching, you are very dharmic. Yes, I need this knowledge, so I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to, I'm going to be very dharmic. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to stray from dharma at all. Now I have gained the knowledge. I can do whatever I want. No, it's not like a boat. We have to remember this. Because if anything, dharma grows on oneself, so much so that in the beginning one is following it deliberately, and then after the one is accomplished in dharma, the dharma does not leave the person. So dharma is not like a ferry that you have taken the boat and then you say bye-bye and walk away. No. You carry the dharma with you. Yeah. It is a boat that you carry with you. It becomes you. You become the boat. And so that dharma is deliberately followed on the part of the person wanting to be known, wanting to know this, and wanting to be a jnani. Here is where the yatna, effort, deliberately following dharma. And in the jnani, what happens to that effort? It culminates in being the person's very nature. And in so doing, what happens is that useless desires keep falling off. Desires that don't have a purpose, desires which, are not benefiting the common good, desires that, that have pressure, just there is no purpose in fulfilling them, because the person's commitment to dharma becomes total. And because of this, we have the sentence prajahati yada sarvan kaman manogatan. Sarvan here means not all desires that are pressuresome. They have some pressure, and they make you do things that you are not proud of. They make you have some kind of a conflict in yourself. That is the whole idea. With binding desires, there is a conflict. There is an idea, there is an ideal, and then there is some way in which I can't fit that ideal. That's the whole conflict. And not even ideal, it's more like in the sense that I know this is good for me, but I can't do this. I know this is bad for me, but I can't refrain from this. And so what will you do? I look to the left, I look to the right, make sure that nobody is seeing me, and then I'll do it. This is the conflict. This is how many times the conflict is resolved, by making sure that one is not observed. Correct? This is what this is the kind of a disconnect. A disconnect from one's being and one's, what one wants to be and how one is. So this is what is talked about. Prajahati sarvan manogatan kaman means all those pressuresome desires, binding desires, are first deliberately given up. The non-binding ones remain. You see? So the non-binding ones can remain because they don't exert a pressure on me to cross dharma. So this is on the level of the effort. And in the antakarna of the jnani, in the jnani's mind, this has already been accomplished. So since this is accomplished, so that you don't even notice the desires coming and going, you just only focus on what needs to be done, and the desires also follow the rubric of what needs to be done and express themselves in that particular way. That is the whole idea. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. And then the second condition is that when you train yourself to sift through the desires, when one trains oneself to sift through the desires and remove the dangerous ones, that are like landmines, and they explode in the face and they bring you down from the pursuit, you eliminate those desires. Just like in a diet, you eliminate everything that has a certain amount of calories, correct? It's not part of the diet. Don't talk about cakes, ice cream, and other things. Don't talk about these things. Why? Because they are inimical to my pursuit, and my pursuit is to avoid all these things. Avoid fat, avoid butter, ghee, what else? Sugar, and some other things like this. And so those kinds of eatables, so someone who has got a diet commitment, depends on the commitment. Those kinds of things will not even feature in the menu, correct? Because the person is so committed that as soon as chocolate cake comes, they will mentally cross it out. No, gone. Something else comes, gone. Murukku comes, gone. Murukku is some fried, fritters, gone. French fries come, gone. Send them back to France. And then what else? Something else, pakoda comes, gone. Anything deep fried, gone. Because I have a commitment. I'm committed only to alpha. That's what it is. So alpha is my commitment, and so anything else that comes is automatically gone. And if one is a macrobiotic or raw food enthusiast, then what? Anything that is even kept next to the stove is gone. Because it may have just gained a little bit of heat by just sitting next to the stove, gone. In fact, everything in the market, in all the restaurants, gone. Then what is available? Front lawn and backyard. That's all. You graze and have some grass and daisies in the morning for breakfast, and then by lunchtime you go to the backyard and have some wilderness there. This is what it is. This is your commitment. So this is all it means, is that the commitment is to this self-knowledge. So anything that does not belong in this category, just like in a diet or in any pursuit, these things don't belong, or the things that don't belong are automatically shelved and kept aside. Here also, those desires that have a certain, pinch, they come with a pinch, like wearing a new shoe, somewhere it is pinching, you don't know where. And so they come with a pressure, they pinch you in order to make you want to do this thing. Those such desires are all suspended. But then they are keeping on coming. What do I do? Attend more classes. That's all the whole thing is. You have to keep the mind elsewhere. That's how to deal with. Same thing in the, whether somebody has a food craving but they are on a diet, they can't eat certain things or they don't want to eat certain things. You have to go running up and down the street. You have to change the channel. You have to go do something, stand under a shower or do whatever it is. Whatever it needs to be to get the mind off of that, and then you start again. Same thing here. When there is a relentless desire knocking, let me in, please, just one time indulge me, what will happen? Where is your Vedanta going? Aren't you, isn't your Swarupa moksha? Yes, that is true. Then what's the harm in letting me in? Do you think you will have less moksha if you let me in versus not? Well, you do have a point. So what will happen if you just indulge in me one time? Well, I guess nothing. All right, come on in. Finished, This is difficult. Why? Because once you let one kind of a, unpermitted desire in, there's not just one of them waiting at the door. Few others nudge and push this one out of the way. They flatten this one and come in. And the one that wanted to come in has already died. But on its dead body, 6 others have come in. And they say, this is not fair. You let that one in. We killed that one because we were jealous of it. And now deal with all of us. And then the fledgling jnani can't even fly away because the wings are not yet fully developed. And the fledgling jnani is in a panic state because suddenly there's all these things to deal with. All I wanted was just one little desire. And this one little desire which was so forceful, which was so much exerting the pressure. And I thought I will do vasana kshaya. There is a certain group of people who think that desires cannot be dealt with except by satisfying them. Dangerous. That means whole life will be, what whole life? Life after life after life after life after life after life. Infinitely you will be satisfying desires, and then in order to satisfy the desires you will do karma, and that karma doesn't, pan out properly. You get karma phala, then you get another birth, and that birth is full of desires, and the next birth is full of even more desires. Desire to the power of infinity. What a horrid prospect. So therefore, here safer it is to interrogate that one desire that is clamoring at the door, saying, let me in, and know that it's just a subterfuge for a deluge of desires that are waiting behind it. So they knock this one down and rush in the psyche, and then very soon one is derailed from the pursuit. Why the Kathopanishad, Ratha Kalpana, yastu vijnanavan bhavati, samanaska sada shuchihi, sodhvanah paramapnoti. And then tato vishnoho paramam padam. So person who is samanaskaha, vijnanavan. So the vijnanavan doesn't mean knowledgeable. The person who is together, samanaskaha, one with the mind and one with the discrimination. The one who is exercising this discrimination, who is keeping the horses, the sense organs under control, under managing the sense organs so that they don't stray everywhere. Each one goes in one direction, means what will happen to the rider? They'll be quartered, And so that should not happen. I should be holding the reins. I should be managing the desires. And then, samanaskaha sada shuchihi. Sada shuchihi means always committed to that which is the purest thing, which is the truth of myself. Pure here also means free of ragadveshas, free of these pressures. So the desire plus ragadvesha is what the pressure we are talking about. That's what makes it the binding desire. I want, I don't want, the tremendous force. The ragadveshas, join this, whatever sankalpa I have, and derail me from the whole pursuit. And then again it says, yastu avijnanavan bhavati, amanaskaha sada ashuchihi. Amanaskaha, opposite, not together with the mind and the senses. And avijnanavan, non-discriminatory by nature. Then what happens? Samsaram cha adhigacchati. Their destination is a permanent destination, samsara. How the buses have a destination written on them? Yeah, on this Jiva, samsara is written in big blinking letters. So that Lord Yama is not confused. Lord Yama throws this Jiva down the chute. Recycle. Yes. More we shall see on the 22nd of August at the same time, 4 o'clock. That's when the next class is going to be. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Questions?
word, or words, that sthita dihi,
Sthitadhihi.
dihi, that particular word, is that the same root from jira?
No, it's dhi. Dhi means buddhi. Sthiradhi, sthitadhihi, same thing. I forgot to talk about that. Yes, sthitadhihi, same thing. Dhihi, sthita, yasya, sthita, pratishtita. Even Adi Shankara does not talk about it because it is very easy. So, sthita, dhihi, yasya, it should be. So, the one whose intellect, whose mind is stable, stably committed and stably, staying, has the staying power in the knowledge. Same meaning. Dhi means is short for buddhi.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
words, words, words. Guruji's words are a nectar of Shabda Pramana, my only way of getting this, but of late I've been like, about words and language.
Why?
Janet has promised to take me somewhere where I've never been, where the sky will be unfamiliar, the seasons will not be in sync, the sun will move in the wrong direction, and I will have no words to communicate with people.
Ah.
No useful words.
Ah.
So I have to learn Spanish.
Oh. Okay, I see. How long are you going?
When we move, probably forever.
Oh, when are you moving?
About the time I can graduate from my 12-year course. The grace of having begun when I was 19.
Yeah.
It might be like 11 years.
Yeah, no problem. So you don't know when you're moving?
We have a new idea that rather than having to wait our 15 years difference
Uh-huh.
longer
Yeah.
for her work,
Yeah.
we might be able to leave in 3 years.
Oh, okay. Plenty of time. Be here now. That's all. Plenty of time. 3 years is a long time. 3-year course. Yeah. No problem. Easy. Very easy. Lot of time is there. Spanish will come, don't worry.
Spanish?
Yeah. See? He's right there behind you. He will teach you.
Where are you? You can learn Spanish in 3 years.
Can't?
Easy.
Very easy.
You
No.
can learn any language in 3 years.
In few days you can learn, no problem. All you have to learn how to say